I'm not using that. I'm sorry. But I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic, drug addict, and my sobriety date is December 1st of 2023. So I got something coming up in a couple days. But since I know everybody in the room and everybody knows pretty much some of my story, little bits and pieces there, here, there, and after, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I grew up rough in the neighborhood, at least, not with the family. I had a really good family growing up. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom's blind in one eye, and she's disabled and can't drive, do different things like that. But my dad seemed to make it work. My dad was a superintendent of a steel mill, and growing up, I was what you would call white privileged. I've been to Disney World like 15 times. I've been to Universal Studios. I've done all the vacation stuff, all the fun. But growing up, I had two sisters, but there was always something missing. There was always something missing. I was never the favorite. I was never my dad's favorite. Yeah, we played baseball and we did different things like that. He helped coach my little league teams, but at the same time, we would come home at night and he'd be drinking. It was like the first 18 years of my life were walking on eggshells the whole time. And now that I look back at it, I understand it because I'm an addict. Alcohol is not really a part of my story. I was a heroin addict and then eventually graduated to a fentanyl addict. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But I dabbled with alcohol when I was like 8 years old for the first time. And how that came about was we would have holidays at my aunts and uncles or grandparents' house, and my dad would give me shots of beer. And if anybody knows, you take shots of beer in little shot glasses, you get drunk, you get fucked up really fast. Well, eventually I found out as I got older that they were trying to get me drunk, so I'd go upstairs and go to sleep, and they could do what they were doing. My dad used to sell coke and marijuana, and I'm sure he played with it, and they don't want some 8-year-old kid walking around while they're blowing lines on the bar, and so yeah, I liked the way it made me feel, and this was at 8 years old, and I'm sure other people have experienced stuff at that age too, but it eventually turned into marijuana. And it's funny, the story that happened with marijuana is I used to go down the street from my house. By that time we moved to Indiana, and my dad had built a house out there, had a house built. And I had to get a whole new group of friends, which I really didn't mind because half the people I knew grew up and they're all pieces of shit now. So, I kind of dodged a bullet on that one. But me and my friend Phil would walk down the street to an opposite corner, like a block away, and we would smoke cigarettes, hide smoking cigarettes. And these older kids, they're about 2-3 years older than us, probably 16, 17, call us over, ask us if we want to smoke pot. And I was like, yeah, hey, fuck it, let's do it. I did it, and I love the way it made me feel. Any drug or alcohol that I've done in my life, I love the way it made me feel. And that's dangerous for me because anything that I like makes me feel like. In the past, I used to have a sex problem, and I was a love addict. I used to be a sex addict, and it was all drug induced. I never really cared about any of the women that I was with when I was doing drugs, and all that. It was just to fill a void. And by the age of 15, I had started doing cocaine. I would have friends spend the night at our house, and we'd go out to the garage and play Monopoly, and we'd do lines off the Monopoly board. And we all thought that was really cool, Of course, we're 15 years old, and we're doing things we're not supposed to be doing. And by that time, let's see, freshman year of high school, I was playing football, and I really never fit in school. I was what you call a nerd. Like, I didn't have any friends other than the older kids in the neighborhood. I didn't really care to be around people at that time. I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. And my mom came in to wake me up for school one day, and she's like, time to get up for school. I said, yeah, Mom, I'm just not going no more. I just don't want to go. And there's really nothing she could say about it. I just never went back. And that's around the time where I met my first and only love that I had ever had at that time. And it was heroin. Heroin is my story. That was my release. That was my That was my everything. Everything that you could find in a woman that you want and her to be everything, I found that in a substance, you know? And I was like 17 years old and I had a friend shoot me up with heroin for the first time. And I don't know anybody that's been in AA that knows the saying, I had arrived. Like that was it. That was all I wanted to do for the rest of my life was shoot heroin, you know? And I know that's probably not a really good outlook on life or anything like that, but I did it. I mean, I started at 17. I'm 44. I just got sober like almost 2 years ago, and I was doing it consecutively just all through those years. I've been to treatment 9 times. I've been to prison 3 times. I just recently got out in March and had a GPS monitor on my leg for like 6 months, and man, I never knew what patience really were, and that was really I had to be really patient for that. You know, I called it a friendship bracelet with my parole officer because she knew where I was at every point, every time. Yeah, I know you got one right there. but I get it. You know, that's another thing that we can relate on, that you understand. You know, it brought me to a point where like I was like, yes, I'm gonna be a good boy from now on. You know, and it's working out. But through my 20s, I was in Indiana, and I decided when I was like 21 years old to come to Texas with my best friend Samantha. This wasn't even the end stop. We were supposed to be in Vegas. We were going to be here for 2 weeks and then go to Vegas. I got here to basically get away from myself, but everywhere I go, there I am. You know, never been introduced to AA, never knew anything about recovery, nothing like that. I didn't want to know about it at that time. And came down to Texas and realized the dope's cheaper and it's better. You know, up there it was real expensive, and I mean, yeah, it was good, but when I came here, it was like I landed in drug heaven for me. You know, well, I ended up being here longer than 2 weeks, obviously, because here we are, 25 years later, 22 years later. You know, I met my ex-wife and fell instantly in love. At least I thought I did. You know, I found somebody that was trying to save me. So I know she's probably going to watch this, but yeah, I stayed with somebody because they wanted to save me. And I guess getting up here and telling stories is about being honest and accepting your past. You know, and I've done this numerous times over the last 13 years of recovery that I've tried. But yeah, instantly fell in love. I got moved in within a couple days. Like I was moving in the back door as her ex was moving out the front door. She had been with somebody for 13 years, and I guess I hung the fucking stars next to the moon for her, you know. And I went to prison, and I went back home. Went to prison in 2003 for a theft charge. And it was basically they were just sick of my shit in Northwest Indiana. They're finally like, yeah, you're not getting out of this one. You're going to prison, you know. And she waited for me the whole time I was gone. And the day that I got out, which was February 13th, 2005, she was there with my stepkids. Had bought me brand new clothes because I was like 210 pounds. I went in at like 150, and tried to do it again with her, and we got married 30 days out of prison. And I'd like to say it was for love, but I think it was so I could get my parole transferred here. So that was the only way I was going to be able to from Indiana. And yeah, she ended up getting pregnant about 8 months out of prison, and I have a wonderful son. He's 19 now. You know, there's things now that I get to do that I never got to do before, but I was able to travel to Arizona to see him at Arizona State, and for his birthday just a week and a half ago, which was awesome. I went on vacation all by myself, and it was great, and I get to do shit like that now. You know, this program has done things for me that no substance, no pill, no woman, no job, no nothing has ever done for me. You know, so we have my son November 10th of 2006, and I guess I was a dad finally. I think I was too young. I don't think I was ready to be a dad, but I mean, he's got the dad that he wants now, and he sent that in a text when I got back, and which was awesome. But You know, I never felt whole, even having a child, even having a wife, even, I mean, all the material things. I had whatever I wanted, but I was never whole. So I always went back to my first love, which was heroin, you know, and I can say that it was a horrible decision, but at the time, I think it was the best decision that I could make because I couldn't do shit for myself. I couldn't do anything. And while on parole in Indiana, I catch a case here in Bexar County for evading arrest in a vehicle. So I had 2 ounces of cocaine on me, and I did what they call the East Side Shuffle, where you shuffle through the blocks in the car. And as I'm doing that, I'm dumping it out the window, you know. And the only reason that I really ran is because I didn't have a license. And they're like, "We just gave you a ticket and sent you on your way." I was like, "Oh, I just ruined a $30,000 truck hitting a tree behind San Antonio College." Got pulled out, gunpoint, everything. They thought that I was on America's Most Wanted. That's how they treated me. But I was in jail for like 3 days, and I never heard anything about that case with parole. And then that happens. But yeah, it was like I had a parole officer that saw that I was doing everything, or at least I showed him I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. When I would get out of parole, I would do lines of meth in the truck in the parking lot, you know. So I never really wanted to stop, you know. And as the time went on, things got worse. I don't even know how many times I've had to stay in a hotel for months at a time because her and I would get into fights. And you know, I always wanted to blame her for it. And now here I am like 20 years later, and I realized it was my fault. I would pick fights so I could go shoot cocaine in a hotel and freak out for a couple days. You know, anytime I put anything in my body and I use a needle to do it, shit gets weird. Like, it's real weird. And I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that today. It still progressed more and more till I ended up in state jail. And I was in state jail for all of 35 days. They held me 21 days more than they were supposed to, which I know there's some kind of like restitution you can get from the state or some shit like that. That's what I was told. They're like, "Oh, you were supposed to be released 3 weeks ago." I was like, "Okay, so those 3 weeks that I was in there, don't I get paid for that?" You know, they kept me longer than they were supposed to, which, I mean, I never bothered with it. I really didn't care. But I get out of state jail. I'm out for a month. And then my friend from Florida hits me up on Facebook. And he's like, "Hey, I just got a check from the BP oil spill. I got $46,000. You want to come out here and sport drink?" I was like, "I don't know what sport drinking is, but yeah." So I go to Florida. I'm living in Pensacola. I'm there for like 9 months. I'm doing all the bad things except for drugs. I was just drinking. You know, that's the only part of my story that really involves drinking. I never went through alcohol withdrawals, so I don't know what that is. You know, I don't know what that looks like. I guess I moderated pretty good, but it talks about in the book that you have anything that I have to moderate, I don't enjoy. Anything that I enjoy, I'm definitely not moderating. You know, if it comes from women back in the day to drugs to impulsively buying shit. Like, I have an impulsive buying problem with Jordans. That's like one of my problems today. And I don't think that's really that bad of a problem. I saw you look down at my feet when I said that. Yeah. I come back to Texas because my son's having problems in daycare or school, whatever it was, and I felt obligated to come back. And you know, even when I came back and I wasn't on heroin, I wasn't doing hard drugs. I think I was smoking like the old school K2 out there, not the stuff that you see at the bus station over here where people are nodding out and look like zombies. It was different, you know. But I come back and I'm on the Greyhound, and I decide, hey, I got 2 hours. I can go to the southeast side and pick up some dope, and then come meet my ex-wife with my son. Well, I never made it back in time to do all that. And there it started again with her, you know, and it wasn't her, it was me, because I decided to go pick up dope instead of seeing my son, the main reason that I left Florida for. So it showed you where my priorities were. I found Haven for Hope a little bit after that. And I found the IHRP program, the original one. And I went into recovery for the first time. And me being the best looking guy at a homeless shelter, I always got the girlfriend in the treatment center. You know, that was me being sarcastic. Because I mean, I looked like shit. I probably looked like really bad shit. But I would always leave treatment with a girlfriend. Well, this one I ended up being with for like 3.5 years. We went through IHRP twice. We had relapses. And I have a second son with her named Corbin that I lost my rights to about 4 years ago because of my relapses and my lack of being a present father, you know. And I tried recovery I've tried treatment 9 times. I think I was serious 1 time. And my biggest thing was having a connection with a higher power. Like I thought I had to believe in what everybody else believed in, you know. So the basis of the program for me is connecting with a higher power, you know. And if I don't tap into that power, I mean, step 2 and step 3 are completely redundant. I mean, they're nothing. They're obsolete. They don't mean nothing to me because I'm not tapping into that power. You know, it took me 11 years to find a higher power to tap into, and I mean, I get to do things like this now. You know, I get to work in a treatment center with a bunch of crazy ass guys, and yeah, I said that, but it's cool because there's a lot of things I get to do now. You know, the only time I ever catch a case is when I'm on drugs. And you know, this last time, they finally told me you're not getting out of jail until we get a conviction and you go to prison. You know, but I'll come to that in a second. But you know, I had problems in recovery where I was what's the word I'm looking for? Promiscuous. Like I changed my addiction from drugs to women. Not even the sex part, just women in general, the attention, doing different things like that, you know. And that's how I fulfilled this hole that I had in there for so many years, so many girlfriends, so many people in the program. I mean, it now I look at it, it was very shitty of me to be the way that I was then, you know. But today I get to make up for that and not make those same choices anymore. I'll probably never be able to repair hearts that I supposedly broke. I don't think anybody in recovery really falls in love. I think it's lust, you know, especially if you're dating in the program and things get really fast. That's why I make the guys at the treatment center sit as far away from the women as possible. Because, you know, I hate to say it like this, but I had a sponsor, my first sponsor, tell me in 2012, trying to find a woman in rehab is like fishing in the sewer. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did, you know. But as you guys know, I don't have a filter. I don't get. I say what's on my mind when it's on my mind. And right now it's just I was nervous about doing this, and I really shouldn't be nervous about doing this because my story is going to help somebody. Maybe not in this room, but I mean, obviously I'm on Facebook Live right now, and that was something that I was told I was doing, and it's okay though, because if I get to expose to you how much of a piece of shit I was back then, and then you guys get to see the person that I am today, you just know that that was my past. And it talks about in the book that our past is our greatest asset, you know. And I tried recovery so many times, you know. Finally, like I think I get it in 2018. April 1st of 2018 was my sobriety date. And I stayed sober for almost 3 years. I was in school. I was going for my addiction counseling degree. You know, I wanted to help people, and I do want to help people. Today, I'm still doing it. I graduate in May, you know, which is pretty badass because where I'm standing right now is probably where I'm going to be coming back to work. You know, and that's just God moments all in itself. But anyways, all my good relapse stories start with Well, I was with this chick. But no, it was different. I was with this chick this time, and it was actually her fault this time. And it really was never their fault. It was always my fault because I was a piece of shit. I was selfish. I didn't care about anybody else but Mike, even in recovery, because I wasn't doing it for the right things. I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I seen somebody yesterday that like they didn't even recognize me when I walked into a room. Yeah, I look different, and my walk is different today, and the person that I am is different today. I mean, there's got to be something working because I work in a treatment center with like 12, 13 guys, and I put their needs before mine. And it's crazy. It's crazy to even think about this stuff. It's crazy to think that I can actually care for other people before I care for myself. And that's not me. That's foreign. That's why when I say I look in the mirror and I don't even recognize the person that I see today, I really don't recognize the person that I see today because this person has never existed. And we had a broken relationship when I was with that girl where my relapse started, the broken relationship. And I justified the breaking up, me leaving her, as a reason to get high. And my last relapse lasted 2 years, and it was crazy. I've never experienced anything like this. Like when they say you hit your bottom and you have first times in your addiction, then you're really down the wrong track. I was living in hotels. I got evicted from my apartment because I turned it into a trap house. I was selling dope out of my apartment. I used to sell a lot of heroin back in the day. And thank God for the money I made, because when I went to prison, I had money set aside. So when I got out, I was able to get on my feet, and it really worked. But, turning an apartment into a trap house where our apartments are all really close together, and then having people come over at 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 o'clock, or when I would go re-up, have 10 heroin addicts in the parking lot, not even in their cars anymore because they're dope sick and they're so antsy they can't sit down. And I wondered why I got evicted. I'm not going to go too much into the selling dope stuff because I'm on Facebook Live right now. But it just I'm sure everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, because if you're watching this, then you're obviously one of us. And I got arrested in Boerne, Texas for 1 to 4 methamphetamines and an under a gram that read fentanyl. And wait, let me back up. So talking about the fentanyl thing, in the year 2023, I overdosed 6 times in that year. And I got brought back on Narcan every single time. So when I'm in my heroin addiction, all I want to do is die. That's all I want to do. But then I OD and get brought back to life, and I'm so grateful I'm alive. It doesn't make any sense. I use heroin because I stopped taking my psych meds. If I stop taking my psych meds, I'm going to shoot heroin again. And I thought that what it did for me was level me out, but I was an emotional mess. And being an emotional mess in your addiction, you just want more of what you're doing because you don't think it's working. And eventually it put me down. Like I said, it put me down 6 times. And I'm very grateful to be here today. And it's crazy to be brought back on Narcan and then wait for the Narcan to wear off just so you could get high again. And I did it every time with the same exact dope that just made me overdose, And when it didn't kill me the second time, after I did it, after the Narcan wore off, I was like, oh, I'm good. I can keep doing this, And then 72 hours later, I go down again. I mean, I overdosed in some lady's bathroom and kicked her whole toilet off the floor. I have no idea how I did that. But, it happened. It's the crazy shit that happens when you do the things that we do in our addiction. But anyways, I get caught in Boerne for the meth and the fentanyl, and I go to jail. And on 2 simple possession cases, I have a $65,000 bond. Thank God my mom had the money to pay half of it, and I would pay payments monthly. But when I've been in the system long enough to know that when you get a bond like $65,000 on two simple possession cases, they're trying to send your ass to prison when you go to court. So I did what I had to do, checked in, did this, did that. Oh, I got out of jail and somebody was like, hey, why don't you get on Suboxone? I was like, hey, I'm just going to go to the West Side and I'm going to pick up heroin. I'll do Suboxone tomorrow. And eventually I did get on Suboxone. I lived out in Bandera, Texas. I was on Suboxone. And anybody who's been on Suboxone knows when you run out of Suboxone, you don't even want to take that drive to San Antonio to get high. And I didn't want, and I couldn't, but I did. But I definitely didn't want to drive to San Antonio. But eventually I get into a car accident that almost kills me. I cracked my sternum, three ribs on this side, 2 on this side, hit my head off the steering wheel in a head-on collision, and the airbag never went up, blew up or whatever. And I couldn't make a case on it because the car wasn't even in my name, And so at this time in Bandera, I'm on bond for 6 charges in San Antonio and 2 charges in Bernie. So I can feel that the time's getting closer to where I'm going to have to accept the responsibility for my actions. And eventually I do. They revoked my bonds November 30th of 2023 and arrested me at court. And me going to court, I thought that I was slick. I took an ecstasy pill. I did a shot of heroin. I did a shot of meth before I went to court. Yeah, I was a knockoff, definitely. But they put me in a holding cell in the back. And I realized, it may have been a foxhole prayer, but, I looked up and I said, whatever fucking gods are out there, do whatever the hell you need to do with me, because I can't live like this anymore. Oh, and in that relapse, I swore off AA to like 5 different people. I said, this shit don't work. It's a cult. I don't want to do this shit, And that's how I really felt, because I was having fun doing what I was doing, and I really wasn't having fun, having to feed an addiction every day or else I get dope sick. Like, I get the kind of dope sick where you better have a plastic garbage bag next to the bed because I'm constantly throwing up. I don't even have anything in my body, and somehow I'm still throwing up, And so I went to Kendall County Jail, and I denied all the detox meds because they weren't going to do anything for me. The only thing that helps me get off of heroin / fentanyl is a benzo, and I can't go to detox down the street. So they're not going to do that for me while I'm in jail. I detoxed for 21 days, and I slept about 400 hours. Somebody had to give me their bottom bunk because I about rolled off the top bunk 2 or 3 times. I ate probably at the most 5 times in those 3 weeks. I was miserable, but I needed to feel what I never wanted to feel again. And to this day, I still remember those days. And it's a huge motivator on why I don't stick needles in my arms unless they have ink on them. That's the only kind of needle is a tattoo needle now, But I go to prison. I'm in Garza West, and I keep to myself. I have old affiliations from like 20 some years ago, but I don't do any of that shit no more. I'm a dad. I'm 44 years old. Like, that stuff doesn't even sound fun to me. But I was in 5 facilities in 16 months. And that was going from Kendall County Jail to prison, back to Bexar County, to Kerr County, back to Garza West, and then to do pre-release at Dominguez. I didn't even know I was getting out until 7 days before I was getting out. I didn't know I was going to have an electronic monitor on my leg either. If I would have known that, I would have just stayed in prison, because I paroled to my ex-wife's house. And for anybody out there listening or anybody in this room, ex-wives and parole do not work together well. It's not a good thing. I love my ex-wife to death, and I always will. But every time I'm around her, everything toxic about me comes out, which means that's just bad situation for me. So I hurried up and got into sober living as quick as I could. I was very limited what I could do with a curfew where I could only be out from 8 to 5. I jumped back in the book. I got a sponsor. I did my steps in about a month and a half. I was already making amends. I'm done making amends now to the people that I really needed to make amends to. I'm not going to go find like a dope dealer that I owe $200 and make amends and a financial amends to them. I just don't care. You know, it's irrelevant to me now. But this journey with recovery this time has made me very humble. I'm very down to earth, and I give it all to the spirituality that I have. You know, the spirituality is an everyday walk for me. You know, I just love what my gods and the goddesses are doing for me today. You know, I get to do a lot of things. I'm having a lot of first times, a lot of first times. I mean, here's a first time for me. I fell in love with a woman that I haven't even had sex with, and I truly love her. Like, and that's the greatest thing in the world. I see you laughing, but I mean, you don't understand it because it's never happened to you, you know, because we were friends and the emotional connection was made before the sexual connection, which means there's no lust there. Of course, there's a little bit, you know, healthy lust, but it's not a lusting relationship. And I'm very grateful for that. And it's not a person in the program, it's a normie. And I've told her everything about my past. And she's still here today, which goes to show me that the way that I am today does not reflect the person that I used to be. You know, yeah, all that shit happened for 30 years of my life, but it made me the person I am today, where I get to do things that I never thought I was going to do. I didn't think I was going to finish school. I thought I was never going to go back to school. And I graduate in like, what, 5 months, 6 months? And I get to help people with the degree that I'm going for. And I get to really help people finally. You know, I have 6 sponsees right now. You know, I have an awesome sponsor that's been my friend for like almost 10 years. And he knows when to take the sponsor hat off and then put it back on. And I need that. I need that accountability from somebody that I really trust. And I mean, I'm sure I could have picked somebody else as my sponsor, but I don't think that I would have trusted them as much as I trust the sponsor that I have right now. And the main thing, and I mean, I'm not going to stress this, I'm probably going to stress this a lot, is being honest. Be honest with yourself. I'm honest with myself today. And you know what that allows me to do? Be honest with everybody around me. You know, I don't lie about shit. I ain't got nothing to lie about. I don't do nothing. You know, I go to school, go to work, go home, play with my dog. Oh, that was one thing when I got out of prison that I had left was my dog. And it took 6 months to get him, but I finally have my dog back, and I've had him for 3 years. And he's an emotional support animal, and he is the definition of an emotional support animal. He knows when I'm going through it because he becomes needy because he needs me to use him, you know, and I'm cool with that. Sometimes it's a little annoying, but you know, it is what it is. But back to the honesty thing, like I've never been this honest in my life, you know, and not care what people think and stand up for what I believe and set boundaries with people. Every single person from my past life has been deleted out of my phone, has been deleted off of Facebook because, you know, they talk about it in AA. If you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, you know. But I understand that, but that's not exactly true in my case because, like, I have a normie girlfriend. I go bar hopping with her, and I know my motives for being there is the social aspect. Like, I have no desire for alcohol. I don't even like it. It killed my father in 2020 from kidney disease, and they put alcoholism on his death certificate, which we were pretty fucked up about that. But you know, I'm blown away at the person I am today. You know, like my mom helped me when I was in prison. So now I send her money and I don't have a problem doing it. My son's in college. I send him money. The money that I make working, I send it to my son. I don't feel like I owe it to him, but it's going to help him with what he's trying to do. And the old selfish Mike would have been like, I would have made some excuse. Oh, I didn't get paid yet. But like, as soon as I got paid yesterday morning, I sent him $200 for school. You know, it's the least I can do for all the terror and trauma and all the bullshit that I put him and his mother through. You know, I mean, like I said, I work in a treatment center. I mean, I love this job. I love being here. And my good buddy Todd told me one day that he knows that I'm going to love these guys until they love themselves, you know, and that's the main thing, is to have somebody that's around you all the time that understands what you're going through. And I never really looked at the program that way. I always looked for the differences. I never looked for the commonalities, you know, like, I mean, I can relate with alcoholics because they go through the same shit we go through. You got to have it the next day. You know, if you don't have it the next day, then it's a horrible day. It's a horrible day on this place we call hell, I mean, earth. But, you know, I'm still nervous as shit doing this right now. I don't even know why, because I see you guys every day that I'm here. But, I mean, I really don't have much else to talk about. And that's it. Hit the button. Hit the button.